You know, for decades, being a teacher in America meant you made it to the middle class. That's no longer the case these days. A lot of teachers in America are now living in poverty. Want to find out what happened to them? Stick around. Welcome to Balancing the Scales, the Economic Justice Report. This is your host, Vic Bersdorf, and on today's show we're going to be talking about these three topics: Norway's family benefits, adjunct professors in poverty, and the life of Lee Atwater, a disgraced legacy. Start off with Norway's family benefits. Information from that segment is going to come from Slate.com and also from lifehack.com, which I'll be paraphrasing from those two articles. So let me give you an overview of what life is like in Norway on economic terms. Norway was once a poor country. Now it has a higher life expectancy than the United States, lower rates of infant mortality, and low unemployment. It also ranks first in prosperity and political and press freedom. But it especially is known for its generous family policies and programs, which would be considered socialist in this country and bad somehow, right? Okay, so what does Norway have going for it? What are these socialist programs? Well, they have almost free healthcare. They have state pensions for retirees, generous paid leave programs for new parents, and heavily subsidized child care programs. Let's watch this video clip and come back and talk about it.
Dear Trump, this is from Occupy Democrats. Dear Trump, this is why Norwegians don't immigrate to the United States. The World Happiness Rank for the United States, we're number 19. Norway, number 1. The World Human Freedom Rank, we are number 23. Norway, number 13. The World Peace Rank, we are number 114, 114, way down there in terms of who promotes, sustains, and participates in peace. Norway, number 14. Guaranteed full health care in the United States? No. In Norway? Yes. Might give you some clue as to why Norwegians aren't coming to the United States. A great article over at Slate.com, Why Don't Norwegians Immigrate to the United States? And they say, just look at life for working parents. Norway now has a higher life expectancy at birth than the United States, lower rates of infant mortality, lower unemployment, and access to the European Union's labor market. Norway ranks first in prosperity. It ranks first in political freedom. It ranks first in press freedom, higher than the United States. Norway has one of the world's most generous paid leave programs for new parents who together are entitled to roughly a year of paid leave after the birth of a child. It's Norway. The United States, on the other hand, offers no universal child care, no universal early education, no universal right to health care.
Pretty depressing, isn't it, for Americans to hear? Let's drill down now and look at each of Norway's benefits in detail, okay? Let's start with almost free healthcare, okay? So it goes like this. Once you're a legal resident of Norway, you can apply for the free healthcare service. According to the World Health Organization, Norway's healthcare is in the top 15, ranked as number 11, while the U.S. is at number 38 of all the countries, right? They surveyed. What else? How about state pensions for retirees? Growing old in Norway is nothing to fear like it is here in the United States. If you fulfill certain requirements, elderly residents over the age of 67 get a state pension of about $1,000 a month. Sounds kind of low, but remember, a lot of the state provides a lot of benefits. So your cost of living when you're old, especially for healthcare, is really cheap, okay, compared to America. Workers in Norway also enjoy a shorter work week. They work on average about 37.5 hours per week, and they get 25 paid holidays per year. 25 paid holidays per year, folks. Huh? On top of that, Norwegians have generous paid leave programs. New parents in Norway are entitled to about a year of paid leave after the birth of a child. And Norway ensures that the children can be cared for by parents in the early months of life, and families don't have to face poverty or unemployment as a result. What's interesting is that Norwegian fathers can take up to 12 weeks of paid leave during the first 3 years after their child is born. What else do they have? have a government-subsidized child care programs. Boy, wouldn't that be nice to have in America? In 1975, Norway already had subsidized child care. All children between the ages of 3 and 6 years old are eligible regardless of their parents' employment or marital status. In European countries in general, but especially in Norway, the cost of care for parents is capped at a percentage of family income. Okay? Norwegian couples in general spend between 10% of their income on childcare costs, and that percentage drops to about 3% for single parents, according to the OECD report. And then there's free education. In the United States, a lot of students here, they rack up as much as $60,000 or more per year. Cost of going to college, right? Well, all Norwegians enjoy tuition-free college and a university. And basically, it works like this. A high level of education in Nordic countries is considered not a private investment. It's considered a civil right. Okay? That's the big difference. Education in America, or after K through 12 education and healthcare, is not considered a civil right or a human right here in this country. So what's the takeaway from this segment? Well, it's important to remember the 3 functions of government, which are, number 1, to protect citizens from internal and external enemies. Number 2, to provide services for their citizens. And number 3, to help them prosper, right? Well, the U.S. isn't doing that. The services we provide to our citizens are hella expensive, right? And helping them prosper, yeah, right. So quite the opposite is happening here in the United States. Instead of helping their citizens prosper, the United States is rapidly turning into a country that's preying on its citizens, preying on them economically, especially the younger generation, right? Because in this country, profits are always put before the essential needs of our people. The end result, folks, is that America is rapidly going backwards, and in my opinion, it's turning into a second world country. More about that in a future show. Okay, now on to our next show segment. Okay, this next story is about the plight of adjunct professors, and the information for this story comes to you from theatlantic.com. So let me start by giving you an overview of their situation. In 1969, almost about 80% of college faculty members back then were tenured or were on a tenure track. Remember, tenure is a term that means a status granted after a probation period to a teacher or professor that offers protection against arbitrary dismissal. You can't be just let go, right, for no reason, right? Today, about 2/3 of faculty teachers in universities are now non-tenured or adjunct professors, and half of those work only part-time at several different teaching jobs just so they can make ends meet, just so they can pay the bills. So essentially, colleges and universities have turned more and more of their teachers or professors into part-time contractors with no benefits, no hope of advancement, poverty wages, and no job security. Let's take an in-depth look now and see what's going on. Based on data from the American Community Survey, 31% of part-time faculty around the United States are living near or below the federal poverty line. And according to the UC Berkeley Labor Center, 1 in 4 families of part-time teachers are enrolled in at least one public assistance program, like food stamps or Medicaid, or qualify for the Earned Income Tax Credit. Personal stories now. Okay? Known as the homeless prof, Mary Faith Cesaroli teaches Romance languages and prepares her courses in friends' apartments when she can crash on a couch over there, or in her car when the friends can't take her in. When a student asked to meet with her during office hours, she responded, she said, "Sure, it's the Pontiac Vibe, parked on Stewart Avenue." Another story, this one from Naomi Winterfalcon, who teaches at Champlain College in Burlingame. She says she's happy that she was able to get together a teaching job this year and stay off food stamps for the summer. A recent survey shows that a large portion of universities and colleges limit their adjunct teaching hours to avoid having to pay or provide the health insurance now required for full-timers under the Affordable Care Act. One adjunct teacher, JJ, posting on the online forum, calculated his or her pay as an adjunct as, get this, $65 per student per semester, which adds up to only about $2,000. She continues, each student paid $45,000 in tuition at this university and took 4 classes at a semester. I think that parents would be rather upset to learn that only $65 of the $45,000 went to pay one professor for an entire semester. And JJ continues, did making so little money affect my job performance? Yes. I missed a week of class once due to being hospitalized for stress and exhaustion. Working 50 hours a week for a grand total of $4,000 over 4 months, working extra jobs to cover my rent and to buy health insurance, and taking other extra jobs to cover my student loans nearly killed me. End of quote. More and more of these adjunct professors are now turning to labor unions like the SEIU for economic help. Right? Tiffany Kraft, who teaches at 4 different institutions in the Portland, Oregon area, says, I quote, what do we have to lose by joining a union? I didn't go through 14 years of college just to be treated like shit. End of quote. So why did I bring this story to you guys today? What's the takeaway here? A couple observations. First, why are basic human services, especially education, now turning into profit centers? Right? Did you know that Blue Cross Healthcare used to be a non-profit and had affordable healthcare? Colleges, especially in California, used to be free, if not at least low cost. Actually, their community colleges are free now. They've been that way for 2 years, community colleges in California. But in general, what happened? Okay, I call it the privatization of essential human services. And it's the result of the rapid destruction of FDR's and LBJ's social programs and the eroding social contract the American government had with American citizens. Folks, if the students of these teachers discover their poverty situation, it will scare them enough that they might question the economic value of their own degree, especially after having to go into debt to pay for their degrees. I would have questioned the value of it if I knew about that. I didn't know about that at the time, but that's what could happen. And the whole college system is unraveling. It's unraveling, folks, because it's starting to smell like a scam. In a lot of ways. There's a lot of majors that still have value, sure, to be a lawyer, to be a doctor, right? But a lot of majors don't have the value anymore, and good luck finding a job after you get out with all that debt. Okay, on to our next story. Okay, so this last show segment is about the life of Lee Atwater, and the information for this segment comes to you from WashingtonPost.com and also from Goodreads.com. So let me start by giving you an overview. I chose this story to illustrate how really important it is to choose our national leaders these days. Okay? This story is about Lee Atwater. Lee was never elected to positions in the political party, but held appointed positions instead. But for what I'm trying to talk about, that doesn't really matter. I'm talking about character here. Let me just say that this story is more about the uncivil nature of our politicians that has caused devastating damage to the lives of political candidate families, has created dangerously uncivil behavior across huge swaths of American society, and has damaged entire sectors of the American economy. Remember, you can't have economic justice without a civil and functioning democracy. Okay? In-depth view now of this story about Lee Atwater. Lee served as a consultant to the Republican Congressman Floyd Spence, who was then facing Democratic challenger Tom Turnipseed. It was in that campaign that he developed his reputation as a politician, to be feared for his ability to attack opponents ruthlessly. in the 1980 campaign, Lee produced television ads that alleged that Turnipseed was a member of the NAACP, and that as a teenager, this is brutal, folks, and that as a teenager, Turnipseed had been, quote, hooked up to jumper cables. Tom Turnipseed was undergoing electroshock therapy for depression at that time. Isn't that effing cruel, folks? Huh? Lee Atwater became friends with Vice President Bush, who then chose him to run his 1988 presidential campaign. Thanks to Lee Atwater, 1988 marked the birth of the modern-day negative campaign. Boy, is that an understatement. For example, the Republicans plastered Mr. Michael Dukakis, back then he was the governor of Massachusetts. They plastered him with the case of Willie Horton, an African-American man who raped a white Maryland woman and stabbed her boyfriend while on a Massachusetts prison furlough program. In 1988, Lee wrote, in fighting against Dukakis, he said, "I would strip the bark off that little bastard and make Willie Horton his running mate." End of quote. That's what Lee said. Lee, however, when he was close to death, he apologized to Michael Dukakis for the naked cruelty of that remark. I think also he apologized to Turnipseed as well. Throughout his career, Lee learned that it didn't make any sense to be fair to the American electorate and talked about national issues. He thought that he could just fabricate issues and use the print and electronic media to create fear in the hearts and minds of the American people. Yeah. So what's the takeaway of this story? This November, folks, take your time to examine the entire life of your representatives. Look at their character, their morals, and ethics, especially their values, as reflected in their voting records. Right? Look at their personal lives, too. Do they match up with your family values? And do they walk the talk, right? As I end this show today, let me leave you with Lee Atwater's paraphrased deathbed confession, as written in Life magazine in the February issue in 1991. Lee died of an inoperable brain tumor. He was 40 years old. Now, as you hear his last words on earth, ask yourself this question. Would Lee Atwater have a reason to lie on his deathbed? Okay? So this is Lee Atwater's deathbed confession, and I quote now, "My illness helped me to see that what was missing in society is what was missing in me. A little heart, a lot of brotherhood. What wouldn't I trade for a little more time with my family? What price wouldn't I pay for an evening with friends? It took a deadly illness to put me eye to eye with that truth. But it's a truth that the country, caught up in its moral decay, can learn on my dime. I don't know who will lead us through the 90s, but they must be able to speak to the spiritual vacuum at the heart of American society today. I was wrong to follow the meanness of conservatism." Let me say the last part again. I was wrong to follow the meanness of conservatism. End of quote. Folks, this November, vote wisely. That's the show for today, folks. Next week I'll be discussing these topics: Sweden's social and family benefits, $2,000 monthly stimulus checks, or not, and public banks to the rescue. Have a blessed day, and always remember, you deserve the government you vote for, and that's more true now than ever.